you all to the Women Startup 3.0. We started the knowledge series from 9th and up to 15th. We have a knowledge series session with the along with the Women Startup 3.0. Tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we have the main Women Summit sessions happening. Today we have the knowledge series on the financial resilience. Ms. Nisari, founder and CEO Harmony Talks will be taking it over for you. She is a former banker turned writer and entrepreneur.
Hello.
Hello, Adira, can you hear me?
Hello, am I audible for all you?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let's start our section. A warm good morning and namaste to all. Myself Asha, and let's begin our section. Kerala Startup Mission is a nodal agency of Government of Kerala for promoting entrepreneurship in the state with a goal to promote technology-based entrepreneurship activities and to create the infrastructure and ecosystem required to support high-end technology-based startup business. Now, about the Women Startup Summit 3.0 is our gathering of third edition and feeling proud to say that we have successfully completed 2 energetic editions. Rise to Equal is the theme of Women Summit. Today's, the 5th day of knowledge section of financial license was Ms. Nisari M., the former banker turned writer and entrepreneur catalyst in empowering women through financial literacy and inclusion, upskilling and entrepreneurship. She is a former and CEO of Harmony Talks on one-stop financial platform for women and also the director of Howard Private Limited, helping brand with content, branding and online marketing strategy planning. She is a financial and business columnist in various form publications like Financial Express and Business Line. She has 7 years of plus years of corporate experience in banking, customer service, credit appraisal, branch operation, training, and team management at ICICI Bank, HDFC Limited, Reliance General Insurance. And she has 10 plus years of communication, branding, and new media strategy planning and consultation. She is a consultant, mentor, trainer at various women startups platforms. Her area of focus are financial planning, business finance, funding, debt management, business strategy, communication, and branding. I'm extremely delighted to welcome such a versatile personality to the 5th day of our knowledge section and feeling extremely happy that she has joined to share experience to women startup participants gathered here. Now I welcome Nisari ma'am to take over this section.
Thank you, Adira. Good morning, everyone. With your permission, let me share my screen. I hope my audio video is good and my screen is visible. A very warm good morning, everyone. Today's topic is financial resilience for startups. In the journey of entrepreneurship, 2 things will happen. We either earn from our business or we learn from our mistakes. So I'm happy to share my learning in this journey of entrepreneurship in the last 10 years. Mostly, most of the mistakes we commit in a business finally end up as a financial mistake. As per an IBM study, 90% of the Indian startups failed within the first 5 years of the inception. You know the reason why? It is at this early stage where we are trying to do a lot of things. We are fresh in the market. We make a lot of mistakes. So mistakes are common, but how fast you bounce back from your mistake, how fast you cope up financially from your mistakes, that is more important in a business. I would like to say every decision in a business is a financial decision. Because whether it is a decision related to, say, development, your strategies, your marketing, or your operations, finally money is involved in everything. So even though we bucket the decisions in our business like a development, for example, if you're developing a product, whether you're planning to outsource it or you're doing it in-house, the platform you're choosing for the development, the time involved in the development, all this involves money. So even though it's a strategy, it's a development process, it is impacting your finance. Similarly, whether it is a marketing strategy, like you deciding to go with the traditional marketing, or you deciding to go with the digital marketing, or various strategies, smart strategies, tried and tested strategies, whatever you try in business, it all decides how much money you are spending. Similarly, with your operations, whether you are doing it in-house, whether you are hiring people or you're outsourcing the thing, how many people you are hiring, all these decisions are finally culminating to the finances of the business. So I would like to say finance is the backbone of every business. I've been interacting with a lot of women entrepreneurs. Most of them, many of them, I've seen that they are really good at, say, marketing, their services, their products, strategies. But when it comes to finance, many women entrepreneurs, they would like to outsource it to a male co-founder, or they may be thinking, I can hire a CFO. There are people even ask me in various forums, like, why don't we hire a capable CFO and outsource this entire thing? But my question was, how do you make sure the person whom you are hired is taking the right decisions for you? So the topic, as finance is the backbone of this thing, it is very vast. I hope I could do justice to the to cover the topic, to cover at least the basics in this given time. I would like to make it more interactive, because practically each topic or each subsegment we are taking it here are so vast. So we will be able to touch base overall everything, like from the idea stage to your early stage, the different phases you are going through. I will be able to broadly cover that, but I would encourage you to come up with more questions so that I can address that specific doubts or specific queries you have about the topic of finance. So before I start, I would like to just mention the common dilemma every startup founder go through. You may be able to relate to at least some of these. First is how to raise the capital, where to spend your money and where not to spend, how to take that decision, like this is good and this is not good. How do I fix my profit? Like, what can be the pricing strategy? How do I make sure that I'm profitable? How do I manage my cash flow? And given all this, we all know that entrepreneurs or a business have, we don't have a steady cash flow. Our income varies. Given all this situation, how do I accumulate wealth? How do I save? How do I make money out of my business? So we will try to touch base each of this dilemma in this session. For that, broadly, I've divided our startup's journey into 4 stages. One is that the idea to product stage. Second is the seed funding stage. Third is the early marketing stage, and the subsequent. So I've divided this into 4 categories, and broadly we discuss the challenges, the mistakes, the situations you come across in each of these sessions, so that we will be able to cover all the basics of in this journey. So the first is the idea to the product stage. I would like to call this as a stage of desperation, because it is at this stage you have a great idea, you want to implement it, you want to make your idea see the daylight. You will be working with a lot of people. You will be talking with your co-founders, you'll be talking with your friends, you're finding ways to implement it. You are spending more of your time, effort for realizing, giving a shape to your idea. So we all are desperate at this stage. Few things which we need to take care during this session will be discussed, during this stage will be discussed here. The first one and the most important one is validating your idea. Because say, for example, I'm just giving an example. If you are coming up with a product like an online food delivery, you feel that, yeah, there is a need of the idea of having or owning online food delivery is great. But how do you know that there is a need, there is a gap exists here, and you can fit into your idea, you can fit in your product here so that you can get a disruptive growth? I'll tell my own example. I came up with, in 2019, I started Her Money Talks. So Her Money Talks is a financial platform for women. It is a known fact that there is a gap between women and finance, because we know that traditionally male members of the families take care of the finances. They are more active investors. Women, they like to outsource finances to their husbands or their fathers. To bridge this gap, okay, I thought there is a need of a financial platform where we can handhold the women. Okay, the idea seems great, but how do I validate? How do I validate that I can make this a success? For example, if women still comfortable outsourcing to their husbands or the male co-founders, my idea will not become successful. So it is not about solving a problem. It is about how you solve a problem, how you validate, how you make it successful. So this kind of analysis is very important for any startups, because many ideas looks great, but how you can implement and how you can make money out of it is most important. Second is the gap in the idea to MVP and the launch stage. I have seen in my journey, I have seen startup founders working on, especially startup founders who are in the technology sector, working on a product or an idea or a prototype for 1 or 2 years. They are developing an app in-house, so they are techies, they might be doing themselves. They're working on it in 1 or 2 years. The challenge is that when your idea is good, I mean, your idea is at a very nascent stage, yes, there is a market for that. But lot of changes are happening in the technology sector. If you are taking time to launch your idea, by the time somebody else with a deep pocket would have launched the idea already. Like that, there are a lot of startups, you won't believe, there are a lot of startups who haven't seen the daylight, who have died down in the idea stage itself. So it is very essential to plan. When you have an idea, it is very essential to plan the timelines by when you're planning to launch the MVP and when you're planning to launch the actual product. Because this gap, a lot of things the field of technology is so disruptive. A lot of things can happen in between. Thirdly, the funding choices you make for the initial capital investment. The early idea stage is the most difficult stage of any startup to raise funding. If you have a family backup or if you have your own savings to pool in and invest in your business, well and good. If not, if you have your friends and families who can help you in materializing your idea, great. If not, you will have to either depend on debt funding or equity funding for raising capital for developing your idea or materializing your idea. As it is a very nascent stage, it is just an idea only. It is very difficult to convince even the banker or an investor to fund your business. You have to prove with the financial projections. You have to prove with the strength of your idea. You have to prove yourself with the strength of your team that you can make it a success. I will cover that, the various options of how you approach investors and how you approach debt funding. Fourth and the most important thing to be taken care at this stage is the compliance gaps. I have seen many startups who are working on the idea, but they don't register the IP or a trademark before the launch of the product. But it is very important that the moment you have an idea, the moment you name your business, you have to register for the trademark or your IP. Because what happens is that at this stage, you may not be realizing it, but what happens is that in future, if you are incurring an objection or you are incurring with any other objection for your trademarks, the amount, the money you are paying, you are going to pay is the financial loss is much bigger. So even though the 4 points I have mentioned are scattered across development, idea, or even the complaints, finally, it is all impacting of finances. So there is a lot of overlap, and I would like to say these are the financial things you should be taking care of. In between, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box, or in the end, I will take the questions and answer one by one. So as I have mentioned about the various funding options available for an early stage startup, I would like to elaborate that a little bit. The first option is the debt funding. Debt funding is none other than the traditional bank loans. It's like that either you mortgage a property or you take a business loan to fund your initial capital requirements. So basically, before you approach, few things you need to know. One is that the documents required. So definitely, as your business is new, the bank or the credit officer at the bank would like to do a background check to know the credibility. So the important documents which you have to submit is first a very strong business plan. A business plan clearly defining your business, your market analysis, your future plans in next 3 years with a very clear financial projections. Then, of course, if you are already filing ITRs or if you have previously worked in some other companies, the previous income related proofs, the ITR you are filing, the previous income related proofs. Then, of course, all your bank statements. If you have any other loans or liabilities, the statements of that. Along with that, if it depends on whether it is a mortgage loan or a pure business loan. In many cases, startup founders, they don't prefer mortgage, they prefer unsecured loans, which are business loans. There are pros and cons. Say, suppose you are taking a loan against a mortgage, like if you are mortgaging a house property and taking a loan, the interest rate will be comparatively less. But if you're going for an unsecured loan, comparatively, the interest rate will be much bigger. But it depends on the personal profile. It depends on the strength of the idea. Mostly for business loans, the interest rate varies a lot. So the final interest rate, even though the banks are advertising like you get business loan at 12%, 14% and all, the ultimate interest which will be charged to you will be depending on your business plan and your background. For examples, it is easy to get a loan for professionals. But if you are in the field of, say, technology, where you don't have physical assets, but your asset is your software or your product, it is very difficult to convince the bank. And you may end up with paying a high interest rate. Because still, even though we are hearing a lot about flexible loans and everything, still, for a company which is not in a brick and mortar form, and for a company which is not having traditional assets like stocks, it is difficult to convince the bank to get a loan. And then there are minimum eligible criteria. One criteria which I can tell is that they make sure all your liabilities combined together is not exceeding 50% of your projected income. Say, suppose your projected income or your current income is 1 lakh. One criteria bank makes sure is all your liabilities put together. All your liabilities mean the EMI of the loan which you have applied now is not exceeding 50%, not exceeding 50,000. That's a simple way to understand. If you understand these basics, you yourself can calculate, okay, how much I will be roughly eligible for a loan before I approach a bank, and this helps you to plan your finances. Then about the interest rate, I've already mentioned. It depends on whether you are going for a mortgage loan or you are going for an unsecured loan. Repayment of, again, that also depends on the type of loan you are taking. If it is a business loan, 5 to 7 years is the typical repayment period. If you are an early stage startup, you may not get an OD. It depends on the bank and your relationship with the bank. If you're going for a secured loan, which means a mortgaged loan, the tenure can be even up to 20 years. Then there will be a lot of other conditions when associated with taking a loan. So it is very important to be familiar with the terms and conditions while before approaching a bank. The second option is, which is very not so popular with women entrepreneurs, or maybe not at least for women entrepreneurs in Kerala, is the equity funding. So equity funding is typically the so-called angel or VC funding. It is like an investor who believe in your idea, invest in your company, and in return, he or she takes an equity in the company. So he or she become a strategic director or a strategic investor, taking a stake in the company and participating in your success, investing money. And to make sure, say, suppose the person who is investing money is taking a risk by investing in your business. So in return, he or she takes a stake in your company to make sure that the amount he's invested is compensated. So that's the guarantee. The equity the investor taking in your firm is the guarantee for the investor. So before early, it is technically we all been hearing like idea stage startups are getting funding. But honestly, it is very difficult unless it is a very disruptive idea, and or the team is that strong, like you are something like you are a serial entrepreneur, or you are being in the corporate, you're having very solid connections in the industry. Otherwise, it is not easy to get funding, a VC or an angel funding, even though we have all the fancy names like pre-seed funding, seed funding, early stage funding, everything. Still, technically, it is not easy for an early stage startup to get equity funding. You should know the ways to approach a VC, how to pitch your business, and make yourself investor ready after understanding all the terms and conditions. To be honest, this topic itself is very vast. Each of the 4 points which I mentioned here itself very vast, but I just try to cover the basics like I mentioned. First, there are ways of approaching. We have been seeing a lot of startup platforms conducting pitch contests, hackathons, all this, arranging all this investor meets and everything. But before you approach an investor, it is good to understand whom you want to approach, because there are a lot of investors out there. There are investors catering to specific segments. There are investors who have invested in fintech, investors who are, good in e-commerce, or investors who are feeling great about other sectors like a retail or some other sectors. So rather than carpet pumping, rather than approaching everyone, it is a fact that we have to approach a lot of people to get at least come closer to a deal. But it is ideal to do that homework before you approach. Do very targeted approach. Like, for example, if your startup is more of an impact kind of company, it is good to approach an investor who has previously funded or who is focusing in impact investment. So the terms and conditions will be much more favorable to you, and even the investor will understand your business, and he or she can be not just an investor, but more of a strategic partner, helping you not just with money, but helping you to scale up the business. How to pitch, of course, you might be familiar. There are a lot of pitch coaching happening. There are some templates on how your pitch deck should be and all. Practically, in my example, it is not about following, it's my experience I'm sharing, it's not about following a template. How you can convince the investor or the person who is listening to you with minimal words, how you can create a hook there, how you can build a connect with the person whom you're interacting is more important. In being investor ready, again, I'll tell from my own example. Like when I started a business, I thought my idea is great. Then I was thinking, why don't I get investors? Later, as I studied, I learned myself that having a great idea is not investor ready. Because definitely when you have an idea, investors will ask you, what is the initial traction you have? A lot of other questions like what is your strategy, what is your plan, the micro analysis of your month-on-month revenue is very important. So if you're not having that micro analysis, that means you're not investor ready. There is a lot of homework involved before approaching an investor. So if you are planning to go for the equity funding, both debt funding and equity funding both requires a lot of homework. But the difference is that for a debt funding, your background and your business plan, of course, if it is very clear, can bring you business. But equity funding, yeah, of course, these two are important. More than that, how well you articulate, how confident you are in, making your business a success is also very important. Now, I'm moving to the next stage than the earliest, after the early stage or the idea stage. The next stage is, of course, seed funding stage. So this is the most awaited stage, because any startup, once you have an idea, you put your own money to start the initial work in the business. The next thing you will be looking is for getting the seed funding. This is a stage where a major decision making is involved, because we hear about when we hear stories about startups getting funding, it all looks very rosy because they are in the limelight. But behind that, there are a lot of paperworks. There are a lot of decisions. There are a lot of negotiation, which we are not aware of. One typical example of the negotiation is the company's valuation, the equity dilution, and the funding ask. How do you know that? What is the amount you should be asking an investor? If you're putting a business plan, say suppose the deficit is, for example, is 25 lakhs. You think 25 lakhs should be my ask. One mistake many startups do is that they evaluate the development cost. Say suppose if I am incurring 25 lakhs for the development of my product, I think 25 lakhs should be my ask. But the challenge is that once you have developed the product, there is a huge pressure of marketing the product. There is a huge pressure of getting the initial traction for the product. So while you are planning your funding ask, it is always ideal to ask a little more than asking little lesser. Many startups will think that, say if I ask for 1 crore, I may not be eligible for that and I may not get it. So I would ask a small amount like a 25 lakhs or a 50 lakhs or even lesser than that. But what happens is that even though it looks like funding, the problem is that once you get the funding, it will be easily diluted and distributed amongst various expenses. Soon your runway is over and you will end up, you will have a lot of cash burn and you will be struggling to further pull your business. So deciding how much to ask is very important. Again, there is no blanket rule here because it depends on, it varies on each business. Then the equity dilution and the valuation is where the major negotiation is coming forward. So just some basic tips like how do you evaluate your business? There is no set of rules for this. If you are a company who's already having a traction and already running profitable, definitely you can evaluate your business based on what is happening in the market and your book profit. Or if yours is a company which having a lot of physical assets, yes, then you can evaluate your company based on your assets. But for technology startups who don't have a physical assets to evaluate, the challenge is that we have to use multiple methods for valuation and get it vetted or officially evaluated by a CA or an official evaluator. So the multiple methods is, of course, it includes your cash discounting method, your book profit, to see what is the market landscape like. Startups in the similar field, what is the valuation they received, and compare your startup with that. There are multiple ways of doing the calculation and take an average of that, and that is your valuation. But the thing is that when you go to an investor, definitely they will try to buy your business at a lower rate, so that they try to bring down your valuation, invest in the business, and then inflate the valuation. So that is a challenge. You need to understand. Again, like I mentioned, this topic itself is good for a separate session. But basically, you need to understand. There is no rule. You need to understand how much valuation you should put. And you should have an understanding like, I will not dilute more than X percentage of my equity. Again, taking that decision is completely upon the startups. Some startups which involves heavy funding or heavy investment at the initial stage. Most of these idea stage startup don't have a bargaining power because we are very early in the field. We don't have so much of success stories to tell. So we don't have that much of bargain value when you are in an initial stage. So it is up to you to decide, consult with experts, decide how much equity should I be diluting, at what valuation should I be inviting investors, and check all the legal aspects. There will be the term sheet is the most difficult document to see. Evaluate all the terms and conditions to safeguard your finances. Otherwise, you will end up with a lot of confusions in the end. For example, many investors like to put the entire investment in cash burn, like marketing, setting up, building a core team, building the product and all. They miss out. The founders are not allowed to take salaries. So these kind of terms and conditions, you need to be aware. You need to discuss it openly with the investor before inking an agreement. And the timing of the funding is very important. Like I mentioned, if you're very early, it is difficult to get funding. But because definitely investors will ask the pilot, the initial traction, the proof of concept. Yes. So it cannot be too early, but at the same time, it cannot be too late also. Because the moment you launch your product, next question comes is that what is the traction? What is the download? So for example, if you have launched your product in August and you are waiting for getting funding until October or until December, when you approach an investor in December, the question will definitely come like, what you have been doing all these months? What is the traction? What is the business? What you have done in this 4 months? So the timing of funding is very important. It cannot be too early. If you are getting too early, you are lucky. It cannot be too early and it cannot be late also. So you have to plan. All this requires some background work. Like you have to plan like when I should be approaching investors. And again, you have to keep approaching a lot of people to get the deal. So at least you should have some mental calculation as like, I launched the product in this month, I need funding at this month. Like that, that calculation is very important in your business plan. Like I mentioned, this is very vast, so I'll be happy to answer the questions in the end if you have anything. So moving to the third stage of a startup's journey. So you have an idea, you got seed funding. Now the third is that you launch the product and the product marketing stage. The moment you launch the product, then you get into the next stage, whether you're funded or not funded, you get into the next stage of your business, which means the product marketing stage. This is the stage with a lot of perspectives, a lot of confusions, a lot of ideas, advices, all coming in from different ends. Because once you launch the product, you have to decide how much you have to spend for your marketing. Whether you go in the traditional mode of marketing or you approach a new form of marketing, digital mode of marketing, whether you are planning a B2B2C approach or you go a co-creation mode, whatever the strategy you're planning makes or breaks your business. There is no clear-cut marketing expense because, for example, if you're taking digital marketing, you can do a digital marketing at say 15,000 a month and with 1 lakh per month also. How do you decide the difference? The mistake many startups do is that they approach different vendors. Each of the vendors will tell you have to do like this SEO, that keyword. I'm just telling an example of a marketing campaign. You have to do Facebook, all the social media platforms, all the things they will tell. It's a blanket rule of digital marketing is that the result will not come immediately. So what happens is that you have to keep putting in money for say a period of 3 to 6 months, and the result will come after that only. So what happens is that many startups realize that they have made a mistake, or they have overspent, or they have overshoot their budget after 6 months only. But by the time they might have invested a lot of money. Because this kind of marketing, the result will not come immediately. You have to be patiently waiting till the result comes. So before the result comes, you cannot judge. So it is very important before approaching a vendor, you should do your own study and understand what works. And ideally, you keep a budget. Whatever happens, it's a business call. So after working out your business plan, your profitability, everything, you have to plan a budget like whatever it is. I cannot spend more than, say, for example, I cannot spend more than 30,000 for marketing. If it is coming, you have to postpone it to the next month. So that budgeting is very important at this stage. And again, this market is very unstructured, so that each vendor will give you different rates. There's no structured fixed rates for this kind of marketing. Secondly, the pressure of competition is so huge. Once you launch a product, every startup founder will be keeping an eye around, like, who's the new competitor coming in the field? What are my existing competitors doing? So we will have that fear because we have spent our passion, our time, our money, everything in developing a product. But soon, when you are out in the market, we all have that insecure feeling that what is our competitor doing? So the pressure of competition, in fact, pushes us to spend more. We end up doing hasty decisions, making many hasty decisions. This is where many startups are committing a mistake. Once you are out in the market, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things which you have to take care, like your building a core team, marketing, various strategies, office space, other expenses, PR, branding, all these things are coming in. Prioritizing what is required and what is not required is very important. For example, you can run a business with a basic website. At the same time, you can spend more in a website and run a business also. So it all depends on the kind of startup you are having and making the right decisions without overshooting your budget. It is very true that when you are out in the market, you will be having a lot of mentors. You will be having the peer pressure. Others will be telling you, hey, I have done this for my business, try out, this will help you also. But it is up to you to decide what works and what not works. So it is at this stage where the CMO of the company and the CFO of the company will be having a lot of disagreements regarding where to spend and where not to spend. So keeping up that relationship between these two departments and making the right decision is very important. Now the next stage is early stage. It is the struggling stage of any startup. You launch the product, the initial excitement is gone. Now you have to, maybe you might have created initial hype with a lot of advertisements or the initial traction or the initial campaign you have done. But now you have to maintain it. You have to keep it sustainable. And it will be at this stage, a lot of other competitors entering to the market. And you will have to tweak the business plans. You will have to change the ideas. You will have to change the strategies to keep up, to keep the pace up. So this is the struggling stage. Many startups will be thinking until launch, this is the struggling stage. We need the initial capital. Okay, you have done. But the early stage, according to me, the early stage is the most struggling stage, because you have to be consistent, not just consistent, your revenue and your profit should be in the uptrend during this time. Like I mentioned before, cash burn applies here also. If you are a funded company, the pressure will be coming from your investors, like they will tell you will have to invest here, you will have to spend on marketing, a lot of spending will be coming. I mean, it's so lucrative, like even it's funny that even we get awards and PRs or even media mentions by paying money. So this is the kind of lucrative world which we live in, where cash burn is very easy, and we realize with the initial passion, we may not understand that, and much later only we realize that we cannot make it sustainable. So cash flow management is very, very important at this stage. And it is always the war between profitability and acquisition. Because like if we just taking the example of the telecom giant Jio, their marketing strategy was they give everything for free. They didn't, they didn't focus on profitability, but they went on a aggressive acquisition mode. It's like giving everything for free and acquiring more customers. But a company like Jio can manage it. It's easy for them. But for a startup who want to prioritize between profitability and acquisition, the call is difficult. Many of the startups I have seen, initially they have been giving pro bono services, give their products and services at a very lesser cost, lot of free subscriptions. But how do you manage between acquisition and profitability? And the other funny thing is that as long as you are offering things for free, you will have customers. The moment you charge them, the moment you tell them from now onwards it is paid, you can see the customers unsubscribing and dropping off. So how do you manage this? Again, it's your business strategy. You need a very strong strategy, but a weak strategy can impact your finances. There are ups and downs in all businesses. So again, it comes to the very theme of the session, resilience. How you bounce back from the downs is very important. There is no harm in tweaking your business models in this journey, because we cannot, of course, when you approach investors, when you approach banks, they will ask for 5-year plan and all. Yes, it is good to have an outlook, but every startup founder, in my opinion, should have that flexibility to tweak your business and go with the flow. Change your business. You should be agile while you are in the business, changing your pace, changing your strategies as per the market demands. Then, of course, for funded companies, the timing of the subsequent funding is very important. I have seen startups who had great products. I'm talking about startups who have a very good background, in fact, who have launched great products, had got initial seed funding, but had to shut shop because the subsequent funding, the timing of the subsequent funding is delayed. It is like when you get the initial seed funding, every startup will be in the limelight. There will be a lot of confidence in the startup founders, like we have got funding. They all are glorified as, as celebrities. You will be spending a lot of money in your initial customer acquisition, marketing, team building, and everything. Soon you finish your runway. Then what happens is that you need to plan your subsequent rounds of funding very quickly. Otherwise, what happens is that after the initial boom, the companies will go through a very difficult phase. In fact, if you are looking at the startup environment, there are a lot of startups. I will mention a few examples in this session. There are a lot of startups who had a very great launch, who got funding in the initial stage, but failed because they couldn't time the subsequent funding. The initial funding itself is a struggle. And after that, if you're focusing, you will be focusing on your marketing, customer acquisition and everything. Immediately, you should plan for your next, that exit plan of the first investor or the subsequent funding. If it is not planned well, very soon, like we mentioned, like we came across that IBM study in the beginning, in the first 5 years, many startups, even though who are successful in the initial years, will fail. Now, as I mentioned this, here are some common money mistakes many startups make. Again, like I mentioned, this is also a very vast topic, but I am just trying to put some common mistakes startups make so that we can cover everything. At least we can at least touch everything. Remaining, I will be happy to answer your questions. First is that accounting related decisions, whether you have to do it in-house or you outsource it to a person, whether you follow a cash accounting or you follow an accrual accounting, because the method you are using impacts a lot on your cash flows. There are a lot of startups whom I have been interacting, at least my friends in the world. They have been asking me how we can outsource this entire thing to a CFO. But I have seen companies who have faced a lot of financial and tax related issues just because they are having an incompetent vendor for managing their finances. So even though you are outsourcing, even if it is a trustworthy person, it is very important that the startup founders themselves should be aware of it and keeping a track of what's happening on a monthly or a quarterly basis. Next is tax payment. We all know, we all very naturally, we think, oh, I don't want to spend a heavy tax. I don't want to pay a heavy tax. We all try to find ways to save tax. But for startup founders, showing their income in their income tax returns is very important. Even though you have income in your books, if you're not, many startups do this, I don't call it mistake, do this practice of saving a lot of tax by writing off a lot of expenses. From a cash flow point of view, it may be good because you get a lot of refunds, you're saving tax. It's good in one way. But if you're a company who's going for funding, or if you're going to approach a bank for a bank loan, it is very important that you should show a healthy financial statements in your income tax payment. The banks or the investor assess your startup based on the financial projections as per your income tax returns. So many startups have seen they have faced this problem of not getting enough funding, debt funding mostly, because they have not shown a healthy financials in their with respect to tax payments. So this is something you have to take a call whether you have to show that income or saving tax is important for you. Then very important is the cash flow management. Many startups struggle for maintaining the cash flow because most of us will focus on how many sales we have done in a month. But it depends on your business, the actual credit period of a business, not all type of business, not the over-to-counter kind of business. For many others, especially those who are in the services industry, the cash flow or the credit period varies from 30 to 60 days. And mostly when you have multiple clients to manage, the cash flow, the timing, the delays, all this impacts your cash flow. All this impacts your working capital because you have to pay your rents every month, you have to pay your taxes every month, you have to pay your employees every month. All these are cash outflows incurring. But if your incoming cash is not matching up to this, you will end up spending out of your pocket to pay your rent or pay the salaries of your employees, which ends up in a messed up financials or messed up accountings. And this itself will give a lot of stress to the startup founders which means you will not be able to focus on other things. You get distracted with the daily cash flow or the working capital management. Many startup founders have been taking working capital loan just to manage their rent, just to manage their employee salary. This again will create confusions, create a lot of, it messes up a lot with your personal finances and your business finance, your CIBIL score, your repayment. The more debts you have, the more liabilities you have, more stress you have. So that's so this is again, there is no blanket rule for this. It is very personal, and it varies from the case of each startup. If you are not able to plan it your own, or if the founders are not able to sit together and make a decision, it is ideal that you take the advice of a CFO or a mentor to help with the cash flow management. Then again, like I covered, raising less funding is a mistake many startups do. They may be thinking an initial, why many startups, especially if it is a women startup, any loan you are taking or any capital you're raising from, even if it's a VC or an angel investor, we see it as a liability. So any loan is a liability, any investment is a liability. So very naturally, especially women founders will be hesitant to take a higher liability. So yes, in one way it makes sense, not having too much of liabilities or debts, it's good. But at the same time, the danger is that if you're raising less money, the danger is coming in the other way. Whatever you have raised will get burnt very fast. And for the further scale up or for the further cash flow management or the working capital management, you will not have enough money left with. And again, you will be forced, because it's a business have to run. So you will be very naturally, even if you don't want to get into, you will be very naturally ending up with raising multiple loans from different banks. And when you it is a fact that when you go for a distress funding, like if you are meeting with an emergency and if you are applying for a loan at that time, we compromise a lot. Like we may mortgage our property, we may end up taking expensive loans. So again, this points to the same thing, very strong financial planning, foreseeing all the challenges, cash flow management, possible expenses, everything is very, very important. So while I'm explaining this, I can only explain the blanket rules, but these are just things for you to keep in mind. But for each business, ideally, if you are not able to do it yourself, again, I'm repeating, you will have to sit with a mentor, understand and plan, have a very clear financial modeling. So like I mentioned, accumulating debt is the problem many startups facing. Many of them may not be telling about it, but it is a fact that business involves a lot of investments to buy the new stocks. Like I mentioned, the salaries, the operational expenses, the monthly rents we have to pay. For all this, many startup founders, they depend on their ODs, taking multiple loans. So accumulating debt and going out of control after a certain period, it is a mistake many startups doing. Then another mistake many startups do is that they go on a very aggressive hiring. Yes, confidence is an element which is very important for any startups, but many times I have seen that startup founders go overconfident also. It's again a very tricky situation. Like if you are doing everything your own, you will never scale up. At the same time, if you're hiring too many startup founders, they see, they judge that their business, they'll have a planning based on that, they overhire. Finally, it is a monthly cash flow out of them. And aggressive hiring has been a wrong strategy for many startups, for the death of many startups. Another important thing is that never ever mix up your personal and business assets. This is something many founders do, that they, if suppose there is a need in a business, like you have to pay a bill, you have to purchase some stocks, you put your personal money into your business, even if it's a temporary loan by the founder or the director, you put your personal money meet the expenses with the hope that you will get it back. But in many cases, it's very tricky, especially when there are multiple founders, multiple directors involved in a business. It is not easy for how to decide who will spend, when can you claim it back. Many startups, it will not happen in the way like you plan. Like, for example, while you're putting, say, suppose if you're putting a 5 lakhs from your personal money to your business for a purchase, for a stock purchase of this month, or for a development cost of this month, you will be calculating it in your mind like, okay, I can take this back, I can get this reimbursed, or the company will pay me back in 3 months. But many cases, trust me, it will not happen like that. And these kind of things, these kind of situations are very tricky. You cannot avoid it because to run the show, you need it. But as one thing you can take care is that a very careful planning is very important at this stage. So like we discussed a lot of things. So here are the examples of some failed startups and why. There are a lot like this, but I'm just taking you through some examples to validate what, or just to discuss, to understand a little bit more on what we have been discussing. One example is Pepper Tap. It is an online grocery store. It is a funded company, but shut down in 2 years. The reason is that they went with heavy discounts and uncontrolled marketing budget. Yes, especially like we discussed, when it is a funded startups, there will be the pressure of customer acquisition. There will be that pressure of doing the marketing to, seen above your competitors. So if you are not drawing the line, so if you are not having a clear planning there, Pepper Tap is a typical example. Next is Jabong. We all know that the fashion store of Jabong, which is shut down in 4 years. What went wrong with Jabong is the wrong positioning. Like there was Myntra, there were Flipkart, all these other sites, other competitors were there, but they couldn't position their USP, or they couldn't position their brand among the other competitors. So very naturally, the competitors with the deep pocket like Myntra and all acquired Jabong. Tiny Owl, it is a hyper-local food delivery which shut down in 1 year. Like we discussed, what went wrong here is the over-hiring and the aggressive market capturing plan without analyzing the core metrics. This is the typical example of the mistake very many startups doing. Because once we are out in the market, we are so passionate about our idea, like we will be overconfident, and there will be different ideas coming in from different angles, whether it can be your investor, it can be your partner, it can be your colleagues or friends. With all that, we get overconfident, overhire, being over aggressive in driving the market, thinking that I can capture the market in 1 year and I'll make it profitable later. But many times things will not work in that way. Hike is another example of a social networking app which is made in India. What happened is that Hike again, like Jabong, they couldn't plan a clear differentiator with their competitors. They couldn't focus on the product well. So the UX was poor. They couldn't find that niche or that USP when compared to WhatsApp and other Snapchat and all. So very soon, competitors with a deep pocket came and Hike has to shut down. Another example is GoZumo. GoZumo is an online like car rental company. What happened is that wrong pricing strategy. They didn't study the market well. When they launched, this market was very nascent. Later, they could find that their competitors launched similar platforms with the better pricing. Stayzilla is another example. Actually, Stayzilla is was a bootstrapped company with a very good strategy. Later, they changed the funding strategy. So like I mentioned, it is up to the startup to decide whether you should go for funding or not. Going for funding doesn't mean that you are successful. All startups who have got funding are not successful also. So it is up to the founders to decide based on their business model, based on what they want to do, based on their outlook and ethics, to decide whether I should go for funding or not go for funding. Stayzilla was a company which was sustainable in the initial years with the bootstrapped. Later, they changed their strategy. They got heavy investments in the later stage. But what happens is that they couldn't compete with their competitors who had a very deep pocket, because their mindset changed, because the founders were thinking in one line and later they changed the strategies, but they couldn't fully understand the new, or maybe mentally they couldn't adjust to the new kind of funding, and they ended up in bad debts. Next is Lawn Meat, which is shut down in 2 years. The reason, like I mentioned here, the timing of the funding was wrong. Like they failed to raise capital in the initial seed round. So what happens is that the product is launched. After that, to market the product, to scale up the product, they didn't get enough funding and they had to shut down. Another one is Fresh Connect, which is an agri-tech platform, failed to raise funding because of wrong expectations and wrong financial planning. So here is where actually these examples are perfectly summarizing what we have discussed in the previous slides. Now, just summarizing the few golden rules for any startup founders. Be very clear about the revenue model. I have discussed with a lot of startups. They talk about their idea, they talk about their kind of customers, they talk a lot about their product and their service, the quality. But finally, the first question, somehow, maybe I am dealing with finance. So the first question that strikes my mind is that how do you make money? But I have seen this as a trend. Many people have a very good product, but how do you make money is something they are not very clear about. It is not about one way of making money. A business can have multiple. Ideally, a business with multiple revenue channels is more sustainable, in my opinion, again. But identifying all the revenue sources or all the revenue possibilities in your business is very important. Many businesses are not tapping this, in my personal opinion, because I've seen this. They talk more about the services, or maybe they are just looking at one revenue model and not having the clarity when they talk about the various revenue models. Then generate profits and not sales. So it is very important to set financial goals, not sales goals. So irrespective of whether you have 7 customers or 70 customers, end of the day, making it profitable is very important. Because many startups I have seen talking about the number of downloads they are having, the number of subscribers they're having, or the number of hits, the number of visitors, or the number of sales they are making. But what is the net profit you're making out of that? Say, suppose you have sold or you got 100 subscribers in a month. Setting up, after calculating all your OPEX, are you making money out of this? The unit cost, the unit economics is very important in any business. And like I mentioned before, pay attention to your cash flows. This is where many startups failing, because we all are overconfident. We think future will be good. We are optimistic. It is good to have optimism, but never lose the control. In my opinion, it's a personal opinion, never lose the control even a single month. At least once in a month in situations like COVID is okay, but otherwise never lose your control on a month-on-month basis. Working capital is very essential. So it is good to over budget. Say, suppose your employee expenses or your rent, everything is coming to a monthly expense of 5 lakhs. Still, it is better you plan a little more. If you keep some buffer and think 8 lakhs is my expense. You plan like that, it saves a lot. It helps a lot. It avoids surprises in the last minute. And I mean, this is, we entrepreneurs know, it is a thin rock. We are making a thin rock walk between our passion and our business judgment. So I have seen many, even I have also done this. Being a startup founder, I have also done this. We prioritize our passion over money. So we are so passionate about our idea, but never ever prioritize our passion. If you feel, you have to do a very clear market study. And if you feel your idea is good, but it is not marketable, ideally you have to stay away from that. And most important thing is that never ever ignore the need of insurance. There are a lot of insurances which are applicable for business. For example, professional indemnity insurance, public liability insurance, an office insurance, a product license, a product insurance. So these kind of insurances specific to your sector, you have to, because these kind of products are not sold like life insurance. But based on your nature of business, you have to at least cover yourself with the essential insurances. The consequences are, it may not happen, but we have to be prepared ourselves for all this unforeseen situation. So this is all I have to tell. And for all the women entrepreneurs out there, this is my one word I have to tell is that take charge of your finances. Don't depend on your co-founders, all the male members of your families. We women have to show the confidence when it comes to our finances. When we talk, I know it is difficult for women comparatively to get funding, but we have to show the confidence, not by your words, not by your story, but by talking numbers. We have to show the confidence that we can do it with a very clear strategy. We have to be very clear with the numbers. We have to be very clear with the strategy and showcase that and talk with confidence that we can do it. Like I say, entrepreneurship is a journey by choice. We choose to become our own boss. We choose to become our own, to start our own business. We choose our career. But in this journey, every choice you make, including your team, including the mode of operation, including the money you spend, the investor you are bringing in, everything makes or break it. So it is a thin rock walk between a lot of things, between the passion, the emotion, the energy, the time, all this the founder investing, along with the business sense, the marketing landscape, the environment where you are in, the industry, the changing dynamics and everything. So it's always a tug of war between our passion and our business sense. So every choice you make in this business is very important. So this is all I have to tell. Just a brief about me that I run Harmony Talks, which is a financial platform for women. We work on helping women with financial awareness, entrepreneurship, and skilling. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you have any questions, you can put it in the chat box or unmute and ask me. I will be happy to hear some voices. Thank you, Reena. Please unmute and ask. At least I want to feel that I was not talking to a screen. Dr. Omer Salim, please.
Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Yes. Thanks for fantabulous running through the the fulcrum of any venture or the enterprise. I should say anyway, any startup, which is the finance. Having said that, finance being the fulcrum as per your talks, how or what measures a startup should take for them to scale up and to have this sustain and sustainability of this financial modeling and architecting of this particular startup venture. Number two, in your presentation, intellectual property, you were saying the startup should go immediately for IP. They go for IP at the initial set out. Suppose a
Yeah.
big time player, a big gigantic player is coming and manipulating their concept or idea, and suddenly they come with a huge funding and proposition and infrastructure. How come this startup can withstand or compete with the manipulator to explore the market?
Okay. I'll answer the second question first. It is my personal experience as well. Like startups should invest in IP at a very early stage. Because many startups, initial stage is the time when they have a lot of financial cash outflows coming. So at the same time, we all think that let the product launch, let us think whether it works or not. Then I will go for this, all these investments in its IP and all, because the process itself is very tedious. But things can happen from very unexpected segments, especially for technology startups. What happens is that we may not be even aware of the product landscape. We may not be even aware like who all are our competitors, like who all are working on what. After spending a lot of money in launching a product, or after working a lot of time on developing a product, later if we are coming across these kind of challenges, it is technically very tedious. I'm not an IP person. I hope we will be having a session on IP, but practically from my experience, if we have to fight it out, or later if we are going to address this, it is going to, especially because of the legal landscape of our country, it is not going to be easy. Even the verdicts or the results or the judgment comes much later. It takes years actually. But by the time we would have spent a lot and we would have built our branch, and later only the judgment comes, or we face that challenge, and then we have to rework the things, which is not easy. If you don't mind, can you repeat the first question?
First is the focus on the. Hello.
Hello. Yes. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
The first is the fulcrum, the spinal cord of any startup venture, which is the financial portfolio, the financial positioning,
Yeah.
the financial modeling, the financial architecting. How well you can guide the aspirants of today's session in financial modeling for them to scale up from transitions, stage by stage transition to achieve and aspire their targeted level.
Yeah. So it's very tricky. I would like to say it's very personal. Like I mentioned repeatedly in the session, there is no blanket rule. Ideally, the founders have to sit together, or the founders have to sit with a mentor or an advisor on board. And we have to plan it very carefully because the kind of expenses you're meeting, what is your mindset? Like I mentioned, whether you have to go for funding or not, how aggressive you should be, what should be your strategy, like whether you want to price your product very low and go for aggressive marketing, or is it okay for a linear growth or a disruptive growth of what I wanted. It all depends on your situations as a founder. For example, if you are a founder with a deep pocket, or if you are willing to put your investments in the company, there is nothing wrong in thinking like I go for an aggressive marketing in the beginning. At the same time, if you are a bootstrapped startup who wants a linear growth, and your vision, it all depends on your vision also. Like linear growth, it makes sense, like I said, having a control on your month-on-month cash flow. So it all depends on how well connected you are, what is your outlook, what is your confidence level, how much you can afford. That is one thing. Secondly, it depends. A clear marketing strategy is very important. Like I mentioned, there is no end to spending in marketing. There are a lot of opportunities. There are a deluge of opportunities come, and it is very lucrative to spend in marketing. But the strategy is very important. Like, for example, I'll tell my own example. Like if I do for my venture, if I am doing a B2C marketing, it is heavy cash rich. There is a cash flow so huge. So I had to rework on the strategy by working on a B2B2C model, which is, less cash intensive, at the same time, a kind of smart work. So ideally, the founders have to sit together, brainstorm. I mean, like I mentioned, it will be a discussion between the CFO and the CMO to decide what strategy will I use, how it's going to be work out, and then sit together and put the financial modeling. Ideally, you cannot leave it to an outsourced CMO, or if your own co-founder is a CFO, you should sit together and plan the strategies to arrive at the financial modeling of the business. I hope my answer was clear.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions? Serena been asking what is impact assessment. So impact assessment is applicable for ideally for Section 8 companies or startups or companies which is creating an impact. So for these kind of startups, usually the valuation is not based on the disruptive growth. Instead of that, the assessment is based on what is the level of economic or social changes or the developments the proposed project or the company can make in the market. So again, it depends on the strength of the idea, the pilot you are presenting, the market landscape, which means how the other companies in the similar sector have created an impact, your mission for the particular year or in 3 years. And based on that, you have to work on a certain calculations and project it to the impact investor or the corporate or the CSR partner. Shana is asking how to give a good exit plan for co-founders. Again, Shana, I don't know what business you are into. It depends on how you are operating. Say, for example, if it depends again on the stage of your startup. If you are in a position to pay back your co-founders can sell the stakes to you and you can pay them, definitely that's a clear-cut way. But many startups, that's not the situation. So maybe for a co-founder to exit, you have to wait till an investor come in, buy the shares, and then another partner can exit. So it all depends on the understanding between two partners. If it is a pure transactional kind of understanding, yes, you have to do the outright settlement and exit. So you have to either pay, the founders have to pay the one founder who wants to exit, or you have to wait till an investor to come. But there will be other situations where there is a good level of understanding between the founders, where one founder who wants to exit due to some personal reasons or some other reasons is willing to wait till he can sell the stakes to the other founder or to another incoming partner. So it all depends on, ideally you have to sit with your financial, your CFO, and with ideally you should take a legal consultation also for this to come to a common agreeable terms and conditions, put an agreement and do accordingly. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thank you, Binsi. Any other questions? I'm available on LinkedIn. In any case, if you have any questions, you can connect with me offline. Yes. Shreyashta, yes, my question is, when does one go for trademarking, and when? Trademarking, I have already covered. The moment you name a product, say suppose you are you are launching a brand and you are identifying a name for your product. The first thing you should be looking is first the domain availability. Second is you should be looking for the trademark availability. That you can actually do it with a simple Googling on the trademark site, or you can take the help of a company secretary or a trademark attorney who can help you with doing a basic search and see if there are similar names already existing in your domain. If not, the moment, ideally what big companies do is that before they rebrand or before they launch a product, they get the trademark registration and then only they launch. Or ideally for startups, you should parallelly move it. The moment you come up with a new brand, parallelly you should be applying for the trademark registrations. And copywriting, I didn't understand. Do you mean website copywriting or your ad copywriting? And the question is not clear. Ideally, if it is website copywriting, or you mean copyright? I'm not clear with the question. If it is copyright, you meant it applies for basically the content you're putting on the site. And the copyright, yes, once you publish any of your messagings or the tagline or anything with respect to your company, publish it online, yes, you should keep the copyright. Okay, website and online, yes, the moment you publish it, yes, you should keep the copyright with you. Ideally, you can, in the website, you need not do any kind of registration for this, but you can just keep the copyrights within. Nowadays, Google also will alert you, like if somebody is copying your session or anything, any of your content. So you can keep all the alerts live and just keep a message in the footer like the content is copyrighted. Thank you, Swati.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can.
Yes, we are a startup in medical devices, creating medical devices. Actually, what we have raised is all through grants from government grants, and so if we are going for, we have not started generating revenue. So if we go for an equity fund, how will be the investor, or how will they evaluate us? Like we have, as far as now, we have not generated any revenue. So how much maximum can we raise?
You have launched your product?
No, we are in the clinical trials phase.
Clinical trials phase. See, as you are a professional, comparatively, it will be easy for you to, I mean, unlike other technology startups, as professionals, comparatively, it will be easy for getting funding. But as you have not launched the product or not getting revenue, like I mentioned, the viability of the product. At the same time, the sector you are in is highly competitive. Every other day, there will be somebody coming up with similar ideas. There will be people who are already funded, coming with deep pocket and ready to invest more for marketing and capture the market. So that challenge will be there with any investor. So ideally, my recommendation is that you can go for debt funding, because for professionals, debt funding is available at a comparatively cheaper rate of interest than others. Or if you are particularly going for an equity investments, do a little bit of homework, searching for investors who are interested in the health tech or healthcare domain. So making a very careful choice of whom you want to target is very important. Then it depends, it completely depends on the investor, whether, and the strength of your product. I don't know about your product or how you are planned your strategies or how you're projecting the financials or anything. So it completely depends on the investor to decide whether they can invest at your startup at this time or not. For, like I mentioned, you, even if where many startups fail is that even though they have a real good idea, they may be failing in articulating it better in papers. So have a very clear articulation, whether it is your pitch deck or your business plan. And based on that, go to investors, approach early stage angel investors who have already funded or invested in the similar domain. And so that you can understand the interest level of the people. Ideally, what I would say is that you can have some casual conversations with investors and get a pulse, like what they think. For me personally, it has helped. When I launched my startup, I had that initial conversation with a lot of people. So I could understand like what are the things they are asking, what are the things they are looking, how they are thinking. So that helped me to fine tune further my pitch deck and other things, or even my business model, so that to make it more investor ready. Then again, another personal advice which I have to tell you is that as you are a professional, there may be professionals who are capable of investing. I mean, this is not purely that VC kind of investment, more of an HNI investment, where you can approach professionals with similar interest, pool in investment. It's kind of crowdfunding, where professionals who have similar interests come in, pool in fund for your company. It's more like a HNI investments for your company. These kind of investments work better for your sector is what I personally feel.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Sri Lakshmi, how do we get access to investors? Best way to get access to investors is be part of various platforms like the summit. You can connect investors. I mean, there are a lot of, you can search for investors who are falling into your domain. Try connecting with them in LinkedIn. There are networking platforms, the investor platforms like, we have Kerala Angel Network, Chennai Angels, Mumbai Angels, Indian Angel Network. There are a lot of angel network platform, Venture Catalyst is there. Like that, a lot of platforms are there. You can Google online, search in LinkedIn. Whenever summits like this happens, there will be names of a lot of investors. Kerala Startup Mission is having Investor Cafe, where they connect one-to-one meetings with startups and investors who are interested in your business. Being part of an ecosystem is very important, so that you get to know what is happening in the industry. You get to know people. You get to get opportunities to interact with people. Shana, while bootstrapping in early stages and then change equity funding later would cause instability in a startup. Yes, I see some startups failed due to change in funding. Yes, I mentioned the example of Stacilla. So it is again up to you whether you want to go for funding or not. We are hearing a lot about funded startups. We are hearing all the funded startups are in the limelight. That doesn't mean that going for funding is that means you are successful. So it is up to you. If, like you mentioned, there can be clauses where the investors tell you to invest heavily in marketing. The investors, you have seen that many even successful startups are running in negative figures, right? So their strategies like they spend a lot, increase their valuation, beef up their valuation, and the startup founders exit later. So that even if your stake is lesser, you sell, the company's valuation is very high. So even if it's a smaller stake, you can sell it and exit, still you make money. So that's their outlook. I mean, then they invest that money into a new business. So they become serial entrepreneurs. So that is one kind of mindset. If that is your mindset, so if you're passionate about doing that, trying and testing your hands with multiple business, yes, well and good, that's up to you. But if you are thinking, I want to linearly grow my business, I'm passionate about this idea, I want to stay in this business, then be careful whom you are choosing for funding. You can go for equity funding if you're coming across an investor who likes your idea, who would just not invest money, but can be a strategic partner with his expertise and his connect, help you, handhold you, build the business. So it's up to you. Again, it's a chemistry between the startup and the investor. If you can gel well, if you feel that ideologies meet, if you're getting help in scale up also, yes, you should definitely go for it. But many things can go wrong here, which is not much been talked about, in fact, but it is a fact, it is a reality. Any other questions? Yes, I missed many. What are the financial aspects to keep in mind for an online saree business? Mini, I don't know much about your business. Online saree business, see, online world is very tricky. you can start a very successful business with a minimal cost also. Same time, there are a lot of startups who are, I mean, you keep, as when you have an online business, especially an e-commerce kind of business, you keep, many startups keep putting in a lot of money. So exactly, I don't know, Minnie, what was your specific question? So I'll broadly touch, like, one is the platform you choose to build your online business. There are many plug and play kind of platforms for like WooCommerce, which anybody can build in a very lesser capital investment. At the same time, you have to keep spend and build a very robust platform also. That is one thing. Then the amount you spend in SEO, digital marketing, social media marketing, everything, you need to have a very clear business model, like I mentioned, based on the customers you have in hand, or based on your outlook. You need to plan, like, I will not spend more than this amount a month. So that planning is very important. Thirdly, choosing the vendor for your website development or your digital marketing or your other marketing is very important. I have seen successful online saree businesses running in just WhatsApp. So that's the kind of network they are building. At the same time, if you're looking for scale up, yes, you need to have a web platform. Ideally, building it step by step is very important. The market which you are in is a very competitive market. There are a lot of players. Differentiating yourself from your competitors is very important. For that, either you should have a very distinctive product, or you should be having a very good network. If you are leveraging your network for your business, you need not have a very robust online store, but you need to, even you can run a very successful business in WhatsApp also. But if you're looking for a scale up for that kind of big platform, then yes, USP is very important. How you position, because it's a very cluttered market. How you position your business, how you differentiate, how much you want to spend, and what is your outlook, how many customers you want to acquire each month or acquire each quarter. All these are very important. So depending on whether you want a linear growth within word of mouth, within your network, or you are looking to build a brand, big brand like Jaipur or something, based on that, you need to have your business plan and you should decide whether you should go for funding or not. I hope my answer was very broad, but I hope it was clear. Or if you have anything specific in mind, I'll be happy to answer that. Thanks, Minnie. Thank you, Amana. Any other questions? I hope I could do justice to the topic because it was so vast, in fact, and each of the slides was, in fact, having content to cover in one particular session. And there was a lot of overlap between marketing strategies, IP, legal, everything, because taxation, finally, everything is culminating into finance. So it is very difficult to separate this, because some of the questions also was related to legal, but it is impacting your finances. So there was a lot of overlap. If there are no other questions, I hope we can wrap up. Thank you, Sangeeta. Atira, can we wrap up?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Anjana.
Am I audible? Hello, ma'am.
Ani, yes, I can share the slides, but my slides are very minimal, very basics. I hope the recording will be available in Kerala Startup Mission's website. So I kept my slide very minimal because there are too many things actually to put on there, and that's exactly why I didn't put much. But you can watch the recording, I guess. That will be more helpful. If you want, I can share, but watching the session will be more helpful, I guess.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible to you?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay. If the participant have no more queries, let's wind up this.
Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope I could do justice to the topic. If there are any questions further you have, I'm available on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me.
Okay, I extend a really hearty vote of thanks to our chief guest, that Ms. Nisharima, who spent time for her busiest schedule to grace our occasion. Today, we have an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely be going to encourage us in future events. And very heartful of thanks to Nisharima and all the participants in here. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.